Talk about suffering for your art. Sometimes a gig just doesn't go as planned, and these musicians have the scars to prove it. Songwriter-turned-singer Bebe Rexha is an artist quite unstrained by the boundaries of genre. Whether it's hip-hop, country, electronica, or pop, she can do and has done it all. She has also worked with artists as varied as Eminem, David Guetta, Nicki Minaj, and Florida Georgia Line. And of course, she's a platinum-selling recording artist in her own right. She also just seems like a generally cool person, which may be why one fan at a June 2023 concert in New York City thought it would be a funny prank to pelt her with a cell phone. Near the end of Rexha's set, the so-called fan, 27-year-old Nicholas Malvania, tossed his phone at Rexha, striking the singer in the face and causing an injury that required stitches. Was Malvania hoping that Rexha would snap a selfie and throw it back to him? Nope. The Manhattan DA's office reported that he told them, "I was trying to see if I could hit her with the phone at the end of the show, because it would be funny." Malvania was charged with 2 counts of assault, 2 counts of harassment, and 1 count of attempted assault. For Rexha's part, she updated fans by way of an Instagram post. A photo showing off her stitches and black eye, sporting a smile and giving a thumbs up, captioned simply, "I'm good."
Yeah, I'm feeling alright.
Pop stars don't come much more famous than Harry Styles, the former One Direction singer who truly blew up after going solo. Styles has sold over 8 million records, won 3 Grammy Awards, and scored 7 top 10 hits, including the #1 singles As It Was and Watermelon Sugar. He's so darned famous, in fact, that he has branched out into acting, starring in flicks such as Dunkirk and Don't Worry, Darling. Still, even Styles is no stranger to getting pelted with random objects on stage. It actually happened not once, but twice the span of a single month. In October 2022, Styles was performing in Chicago when an unidentified object sailed out of the crowd and nailed him in the groin. Styles reacted to this by doubling over, remarking about his bad luck and getting back to work. Then, in November of that year, Styles was getting down in Los Angeles when a fan got the bright idea to toss him a handful of Skittles, one of which struck him right in the eye. Styles managed to brush it off, but his drummer Paulie Lovejoy took to Instagram following the incident with a polite request for fans. He wrote, "Do me a favor, don't throw no more Skittles on stage." Classic rockers Aerosmith have been around the classic rock block a time or two, and they have more than likely seen just about everything showbiz has to offer. It may come as no surprise, then, to learn that they too have sustained injuries due to onstage fan shenanigans. What may be a little more surprising, though, is that it happened twice in the same city, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
Go Birds, though.
Oh, go Birds.
Right, right. Go Birds,
I
right?
know Go
Go
Birds.
Birds.
Get your hand off my knee.
At an October 1977 show, the band were ascending the stairs for an encore when an M80 came out of nowhere, exploding right in their vicinity. The blast injured singer Steven Tyler's eyes and somehow ruptured an artery in guitarist Joe Perry's right hand, which obviously necessitated quick medical attention for both. The band were understandably peeved about this and refused to return to Philly for quite some time. When they finally did return over a year later, they were greeted with a sign in the stands reading, "We are sorry about last time, Aerosmith. Glad you're back." A nice sentiment, but 5 songs into their set, someone lobbed a beer bottle from a seat in the balcony, which exploded into shards in the middle of the stage and once again injured Tyler's face. Amazingly, Tyler wanted to return to the stage after the incident, but was outvoted by the other band members, and that was the end of Aerosmith's triumphant return to Philly. A$AP Rocky is one of the biggest rap stars of the past decade, and he's not afraid to act like it. Rocky has scored 2 #1 albums and 3 top 10 singles. He has worked with just about everybody in the biz, and he works in a genre that places a premium on fame, wealth, and badassery. So, when some guy started throwing beer cans on stage during Rocky's appearance at South by Southwest in 2012, it's unclear what he was expecting. If it was a hearty chuckle and a gentle admonishing, well, he didn't get that. The first volley came into contact with one of Rocky's entourage, known as the A$AP Mob. At that point, Rocky attempted to get both the mob and the crowd to chill. The next can hit the rapper himself, and as Rocky started to get really annoyed, yet more detritus began flying toward the stage. So Rocky and his pals flew into the audience. A melee ensued, police came, and the set was shut down. An egregious waste of valuable stage time and beer. The late Frank Zappa was the very definition of an idiosyncratic artist, supremely talented, endlessly inventive, and prone to pushing all kinds of musical boundaries. Zappa's music could be a bit of an acquired taste.
How do you get the London Symphony Orchestra to do your stuff?
You pay them.
Yeah.
Fans who got it, though, tended to be pretty hardcore. Maybe that's why one person inflicted a serious injury on Zappa at a performance in December 1971, and they had a pretty crazy reason for doing so. In his autobiography, The Real Frank Zappa book, Zappa explained that in the middle of performing a Beatles cover, he was suddenly rushed by 24-year-old Trevor Howell. Howell would later tell police that he took this action for a very sensible reason, because his girlfriend said she loved Frank. Howell punched Zappa, who tumbled off the stage and fell 15 feet into a concrete orchestra pit, sustaining some gnarly injuries. He wrote, "My head was over on my shoulder, and my neck was bent like it was broken. I had a gash in my chin, a hole in the back of my head, a broken rib, and a fractured leg. One arm was paralyzed." Zappa recovered from his injuries mostly. Tragically, the hard fall also damaged his larynx, forever altering his vocal range. Howell spent a year in jail, and Zappa kept one souvenir from the incident, a leg that was shorter than the other, which he would humorously reference in his song Dancin' Fool. In July 2022, Rage Against the Machine frontman Zach De La Rocha suffered a freak accident during one of the band's comeback dates in Chicago, severely injuring his leg. Barely 2 weeks later, the band was still recovering when one unruly fan decided to spice up the proceedings during a show in Toronto, bolting onto the stage during a performance of Killing in the Name. An astute security guard immediately made a beeline for the guy, but unfortunately for guitarist Tom Morello, he was sort of in the way, which is how Morello ended up basically getting tackled by his own security. The guard did succeed in pushing the fan off the stage, but he then crashed into Morello, causing the guitarist to exit the stage in pretty much the exact same fashion. The crowd, perhaps still mindful of the misfortune that had recently befallen De La Rocha, held their collective breath, but Morello managed to get to his feet, dust himself off, and revealed that he was none the worse for wear. He then proceeded to finish out the show. The moral of the story is self-evident. Good luck ever getting Rage Against the Machine to stop rocking. It's just not going to happen. The late great David Bowie probably wasn't actually from this planet. For evidence, see his starring turn in the 1976 feature film The Man Who Fell to Earth, in which he portrays an alien with alarming ease.
What do you do? For a living, I mean.
Oh, just visiting.
His talent was simply otherworldly, as was his appearance, mainly owing to his eyes, which were mismatched due to one pupil being permanently dilated as a result of a childhood fight. The last thing Bowie needed was any further damage to his eyes, of course, but that came very close to happening during a 2004 appearance at a Norwegian music festival. The offending object? A lollipop, oddly enough, which came flying out of the crowd to strike the iconic musician in the eye. In an unconfirmed audio recording of Bowie's reaction to the incident, he goes on a profane tirade against the guilty party, who apparently had managed to disappear into the crowd. He then recovered his wits and made the obvious joke. "Do remember, I've only got one anyway." Fortunately, that's the one that works. The other one has just become a little more decorative than it was before. He then advised the audience to keep their affection to themselves before threatening them with an even longer show if they failed to comply. It's a wonder he didn't get an entire candy store chucked at him. There's only one person in the world who can feasibly be called the ultimate rock and roll flutist, Ian Anderson. For decades, the Jethro Tull frontman has rocked flagrantly hard in spite of his instrument of choice. And it's certainly not his fault that, today, the band are perhaps best remembered for inexplicably winning the inaugural Grammy Award for Best Hard Rock Metal Performance, despite not being a metal band. In 1979, during a performance at New York City's Madison Square Garden, Anderson also sustained one of the most freakish injuries in the history of live music. Many of the details are lost to the mists of time, but what's known is this. At some point during the show, an adoring fan threw a rose onto the stage. This rose still had at least one thorn intact, and said thorn made contact with Anderson's eye. Anderson sustained a serious enough wound to that eye that, for the next few performances, he wore protective goggles on stage. And who could blame him? In April 2023, rising Canadian dancehall star Diiverse was opening for fellow dancehall artist Valiant when the situation suddenly became less rockin' and more terrifying. An unknown person rushed the stage, grabbed the mic from Diiverse, and threw it directly at the singer's face. Diiverse later told Dancehall Mag he grabbed the mic and said something about him being tired of being styled or something like that. He ended up losing his footing and was falling, so he flung the mic right in my forehead. I was bleeding for a long time before I left the venue.
When I turned like that, I just started to see blood falling from my face.
The man was apparently never identified, as Diiverse explained to the Jamaica Star following the incident. She said, "I don't know who he is. The only thing I know is that he has good aim." Kelsea Ballerini might be Taylor Swift's long-lost, more country twin. Honing her singing, songwriting, and guitar skills from a very early age, she burst onto the scene in 2015 with her debut LP, The First Time. In the years since, she sold a boatload of records and garnered a huge fan base by walking the line between country and pop. However, like any hot young artist, Ballerini's fans can get a bit unruly. At a June 2023 concert in Boise, Idaho, Ballerini was in the middle of a song when an object, later determined to be a bracelet, came flying out of the audience and struck her in the face. She stopped the song and had one of her backing musicians briefly assess the injury before heading off stage. According to the Los Angeles Times, when she returned, she addressed the crowd saying, "All I care about is keeping everyone safe. If you ever don't feel safe, please let someone around you know. If anyone's pushing too much or you just have that gut feeling, just always flag it." She then wrapped up her heart-to-heart with some advice, telling the crowd, "Don't throw things, you know." In a follow-up Instagram story, Ballerini explained that she had been hit in the eye by the accessory, but that she had been more startled than hurt.